How's it going, guys? So, due to the season being interrupted, the Ballon d'Or Player of the Year award has been scrapped, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me considering most players still played the same amount of games that they were meant to. Anyway, instead, we're getting a Player of the Century award, which equally doesn't make sense considering it's only 2020. And of course, guys, it wouldn't be right to talk about a Player of the Century award without paying tribute to Diego Maradona, who sadly passed away this week due to a heart attack. So I'd like to dedicate this video to him. May he rest in peace. But a short list of 28 players has been released, and I thought it could be fun to have a look at that list, see maybe 5 players that shouldn't be on it and 5 that should. Let's get to it. Okay, number 5 for the shouldn't be pile, I'm going for Neymar, and hear me out on this one. I know that Neymar is a fantastic player, but as Messi and Ronaldo aged, he was meant to be the one coming in and taking the Ballon d'Ors. They are now both well into their 30s, and he still hasn't managed it. And even this year, when both of them kind of dropped below their usual standards, it was another lad in his 30s in Lewandowski who was the favourite to take it up. On top of that, Neymar's never really matured the way Ronaldo did. If you watch any game he plays, his diving and his play acting is still a pretty big feature, and I think that the combination of those factors should be enough to have kept him off this list. For number 5 on the should be list, I'm going for Eden Hazard. Hazard has become a bit of a forgotten man in the last year or so due to his injury and confidence problems at Real Madrid, but he had a fantastic 7 years at Chelsea. People might point to the fact that his goal scoring numbers aren't quite the same as other wingers on this list, but I would argue that that's because for most of his time at Chelsea, he played as part of a defensive team that often relied on him being the one to work a piece of magic and grab them that one goal. Of all the players that in their youth were dubbed as the next Lionel Messi, I think that Hazard has come the closest to reaching that title and should have been worthy of at least a mention on this list. Number 4 on the shouldn't be list, I'm going for Sergio Ramos. This was tough because I know that he's won pretty much everything there is to win in the game, and most of those accolades he's won more than once. But what I will point to is the fact that he's quite a controversial figure. As soon as he comes up against a semi-decent opposition, his first instinct is to play as dirty as possible, which is why he's got the record amount of red cards. He's a great player, but I think that a defensive rock like Nemanja Vidic maybe deserved a spot on this list slightly more. For number 4 on the should be list, we have our second Belgian in Kevin De Bruyne. This was a tough one between himself and his former teammate David Silva, but what hurt David Silva here was the fact that he never quite managed to break into the Spain midfield ahead of Xavi and Iniesta. Ever since being dumped unceremoniously out of Chelsea Football Club, De Bruyne has been nothing short of fantastic. First in Germany, where he won the Bundesliga Player of the War of the Year with Wolfsburg, and of course since then for Manchester City, where in the last 5 years he's won the Premier League twice as well as an absolute multitude of individual awards. He should have been on this list. Number 3 on the shouldn't be list, I'm going for Manuel Neuer. God, the shouldn't be list was so much tougher to make than the should be list, but back in the day when he moved to Bayern Munich, Manuel Neuer was, in my opinion, the best goalkeeper in the world. I'm confident in saying that. But in years gone by, those standards have slipped to the point that I think you'd struggle to even put him in the top 5 goalkeepers in the world for a few years now. He did basically invent the sweeper keeper position, but I think that he just about falls short of what's needed for this list. I feel like quite a lot of people will disagree with me on that one, but when you look at the other 2 goalkeepers nominated, Buffon and Casillas, and you think, okay, who are we going to take in their prime? I think that the other 2 are the obvious picks ahead of Neuer. Number 3 on the should be pile, I'm putting Sergio Aguero. Out of the entire list, not a single Man City player was nominated, with the exception of Frank Lampard, who barely counts, and I think none can feel more aggrieved by this than Sergio Kun Aguero. He is the best striker of the last 10 years that this league has seen. I'm saying that hands down, ahead of Harry Kane, ahead of Jamie Vardy, and his goals to game ratio is phenomenal. He scored more hat-tricks than any other player in Premier League history. I think he should have been a shoo-in for this list, but no, he was overlooked by others that I consider a little less worthy. I know that Manchester City and Argentina constantly battling in the Champions League and World Cups respectively didn't help him here, but to pin all that blame on Aguero is unfair and shouldn't have led to his omission. For second place on the shouldn't be list, I'm going for Kylian Mbappe. Look, Mbappe is fantastic, but this is a Player of the Century award and he's only 21 years old. I mean, when half the players on the list were retiring, he still hadn't even hit puberty. There is essentially no doubt in anyone's mind that Kylian Mbappe is going to be a future Ballon d'Or winner, but for now, putting him on this list is just a bit premature for me. For number 2 on the should be list, I'm going for Wayne Rooney. Rooney for me is a player that never quite hit the tippy top of his potential, but he was pretty damn close. I mean, we're talking about the record goal scorer for England as well as the second highest goal scorer in Premier League history, despite the fact that he hasn't even played in that league for the last 3 years. I honestly can't see a good reason why he was left out of this list. Number 1 on the shouldn't be list, Mohamed Salah. I'm sorry Liverpool fans, but when I saw Mo Salah's name on this list, I swear my jaw dropped a little. I mean, for Basel and Chelsea, he was an Adama Traore. He was quick and skillful, but he had zero end product. He then went and had semi-decent seasons with Roma and Fiorentina, enough for Liverpool to pick him up. And yes, for the last 3 years, his career has exploded. He's got the record for most goals in a Premier League season, which was insanely impressive. But come on, player of the century standard? I'm not having it. And number 1 on the should-be list, Thierry Henry. As an Irishman and not even an Arsenal fan, this was a tough one to admit. But how has Thierry Henry not made this 28-man shortlist for Player of the Century? I know that the likes of Maldini, Roy Keane, Vieira were left out, but that's because most of their best years were in the 90s. Thierry Henry didn't move to Arsenal until 99, and everyone knows that his best years came after that. He was the Invincibles with Arsenal, he was brilliant with Barcelona, he won the World Cup with France, he won the Euros with France. I mean, he did everything except maybe pick up a Ballon d'Or, but that shouldn't have stopped him from making this shortlist. Anyway guys, that's it for my list of players who both should and shouldn't have been shortlisted for the Player of the Century award. Comment below if you agree or disagree with my picks, like if you did enjoy, subscribe for more footy chats, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.